My sister spent years humiliating me at family dinners, mocking me for renting, bragging about her perfect house, lecturing me about responsibility. What no one knew was that I'd been secretly paying her mortgage the entire time, even while she called me the family failure. And everything exploded the night she stormed into my apartment and shattered more than just a picture frame. My name is Mira, 32, female, and I'm the failure of my family. If you asked my parents, they wouldn't say it outright. They'd toss out words like a late bloomer or finding her path, but it's all code. You learn to read tone like body language. There's the warm, effortless affection they give my older sister Sabine, 35. And then there's the polite, slightly strained version they use for me. Sunday dinners are where it all becomes impossible to ignore. We always gather at my parents' place, a beige split level they've lived in since I was 12. The house always smells like pot roast and furniture polish, and the TV in the living room plays muted sports like some kind of emotional wallpaper. Sabine arrives 10 minutes early every week, stepping out of her navy sedan, still in a whatever tailored outfit she wore to her incredibly demanding job. I show up after with a casserole dish and a bottle of wine that's nice enough to look thoughtful, but not expensive enough for anyone to comment on. "Mira, there you are," my mom says in this too bright voice, as if I've returned from a long voyage instead of driving 15 minutes. Then Sabine comes through the door, and suddenly the atmosphere shifts, the way sunlight shifts when a cloud moves. My mom's voice goes soft and warm. "Sabine, sweetheart, what a lovely blouse. That color is perfect on you." If that blouse had a pulse, my mom would knit it a Christmas stocking. Sabine and I weren't always like this. Growing up, she used to paint my nails before school and let me sleep in her room when thunderstorms terrified me. She was always the orderly one, the planner, the kid who alphabetized her bookshelf while I doodled stories in the margins of my homework. Somewhere along the way, between her master's degree and my I'll figure it out phase, the distance between us stopped being playful and became structural. It really cemented the year she bought her house, a picture-perfect two-story with sage green shutters and a porch swing. Ever since she closed on it, every conversation has somehow come back to homeownership, renovations, equity positions, and how fulfilling it is to build something of your own. Meanwhile, I rent a modest apartment downtown. Good light, ancient radiators, creaky floors. According to my family, that means I'm one cracked pipe away from complete ruin and refuse to grow up. Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, don't forget to sub and drop a like if you're enjoying the story. And tell me what you think in the comments. Thank you very much. Enjoy watching. "So," Sabine says one Sunday, slicing her roast like she's hosting a financial lifestyle workshop, "the contractor finally finished my pantry extension, custom shelving. It adds a ton of value to the space." "That's great," I say, because that's my role. Cheerleader of the empire. She gives me that smile, polite, pitying, razor sharp. "You should think about buying, Mira. Renting is just, well," she laughs softly, "it's throwing money away, especially at your age. Doesn't your consulting firm pay well enough to consider a starter home?" My mom nods, wiping a non-existent crumb from the counter. My dad drinks his beer like it's his only escape hatch. Here's what none of them know. I could buy a house. Several, I already have, 15 of them. But in their heads, I'm scraping by at a flimsy consulting job I invented as a cover story, because explaining rental income streams and occupancy rates to people who distrust direct deposit felt like too much emotional labor. So when Sabine says that, I just spear a piece of carrot and shrug. "Market's wild," I say. "Maybe someday." She laughs again, soft and superior. "You can't wait forever. At some point, you have to get serious about life." And beneath her words, something inside me tightens, half humiliation, half this dark, quiet irony. Because while she lectures me about being serious, her newly renovated dream home is being partially funded by a scheduled monthly transfer in my banking app, from my account to hers, and not a single person at that table knows. I wish I could say Sabine's comments stopped at that one dinner, but they didn't. They became a weekly occurrence, woven into the meal like some sort of passive-aggressive seasoning. "Mira, you really should consider building equity." "Mira, you'd feel so much more secure if you owned something." "Mira, imagine not answering to a landlord." Every time she said it, I'd nod like the obedient little failure they assumed I was. Even though I hadn't spoken to a landlord in 6 years, I literally am the landlord for 15 different people. Sometimes I get texts from tenants during dinner, or maintenance questions, requests for appliance upgrades, the usual, and I'd silence my phone quickly, sliding it face down before anyone noticed. Keeping the secret wasn't about shame. I wasn't hiding out of insecurity. I was hiding because the minute my family found out I was financially successful, quietly, independently, they would smother me with their expectations, criticism, and unsolicited advice. They always did. They did it to Sabine constantly, and she thrived on it. I didn't. And then there was the other reasons. Sabine needed the money. 2 years ago, she lost her job. She called me, sobbing so hard she couldn't string a sentence together. Sabine never cries. She weaponizes confidence, so hearing her break was like hearing a glass swan shatter. "Mira, I can't lose the house," she whispered. "Please, can you help me? Just for a few months? Until I get back on my feet?" I didn't hesitate. I set up the transfer that night. I had more than enough rental income to float her temporarily. And I meant it, temporarily. But then she got a new job. A lower-paying one. The kind where she still wore nice blazers but had this constant panic flickering under the surface. She didn't stop the payments. She didn't resume covering her own mortgage. She just let it happen, let me support her, never thanked me, never acknowledged the scale of the help. She just kept criticizing my life choices from the perch I was secretly holding up for her. The irony became a dull hum in the background of everything. One Sunday during dinner, she launched into another monologue about her renovation, this time about upgrading her backyard deck, and how investing in your property was the responsible thing to do. "Mira, you should think about long-term stability," she said, cutting into her chicken. I felt something twist in me, because the night before she texted me, "Hey, need the transfer early this month, contractor overcharged, please." And I'd sent it, like always. So when she said that, my fork slipped out of my hand and clattered onto the plate. My dad looked up, startled. My mom froze mid-chew. Sabine glanced at me with that same pitying look she always used. What's wrong? What's wrong? Maybe the fact that she was lecturing me about responsibility while living off my money like a silent parasite. Maybe the fact that she had built this whole identity on financial stability while leaning entirely on the sister she dismissed as a renter, a dreamer, a failure. Maybe the fact that she'd gotten comfortable, too comfortable, with the lie. I took a slow breath. Not a dramatic one, just enough to push down the rising heat in my chest. "Nothing," I said. "I'm fine." But for the first time I wasn't sure that was true, because something in me had shifted. Cracked. The kind of crack that doesn't heal. It spreads. And I didn't know it yet, but that tiny shift was the beginning of the end of the family dynamic we'd all been pretending was normal. The crack inside me didn't stay small for long. Over the next few weeks, the uneasiness turned into something sharper, like resentment wearing shoes in my chest. I kept thinking about how Sabine looked at me during those dinners, how my parents nodded along to her lectures, how none of them had the slightest idea that the only reason Sabine still owned that sage green house she bragged about was because I paid for the privilege of keeping it afloat. I'd always prided myself on being quiet, self-contained. I avoided conflict like it was a second job, but suddenly silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like suffocating. The turning point came on a Thursday. I remember because I'd just finished doing walkthroughs on 2 of my properties. One tenant had a leaky faucet, another had a broken window lock. Normal stuff. I went home tired but satisfied. My version of a good day. Then Sabine called. Not texted, not emailed. Called. And Sabine doesn't call unless she wants something. "Mira," she said breathlessly, not even a greeting. "I need the payment early again, like today." I stared at the phone. "Sabine, I just sent it early last month. What's going on?" She sighed dramatically. "God, don't start. My job cut bonuses. Again. And the deck guy wants the final payment sooner. I thought you'd understand. It's just money, Mira." That's the moment something broke. Just money. Just money. The same money she weaponized against me every single week at dinner. The same money she pretended that I didn't understand. The same money she believed she had earned the moral high ground to lecture me about. "Sabine," I said slowly, carefully, "I'm not your bank." Her voice sharpened instantly. "Don't do this, not now. I'm already stressed." "You're always stressed, and I'm always paying for it." She went quiet. Not reflective quiet, calculating quiet, then flatly, "Are you saying no?" I hesitated, and that hesitation was enough, because she snapped. You know what? Forget it. I should have expected this. You don't get responsibility. You don't get what it takes to maintain a real life. You're too busy playing pretend with that silly consulting job. I felt the heat crawl up my spine. My pulse hammered. Sabine, I warned, but she was spiraling. I swear, Mira, you're unbelievable. You rent. You act like a child. You think buying takeout and wearing thrift store sweaters makes you quirky. I'm the one actually building something. And you're going to let me drown over a stupid monthly transfer? That did it. And before I could think, the words tore out of me. You're not drowning, Sabine. You're sitting on a porch swing I paid for. Silence. She inhaled sharply like a hiss, and then screamed, Don't you dare take credit for my life. And then she hung up. I stood there shaking, phone still pressed to my ear, staring at the wall like it might offer answers. A minute later, my phone buzzed. Not Sabine. My mother. Honey, Sabine is having a panic attack, the text said. What happened? Please call me. Great. Perfect. Sabine had run to them first. Of course she did. I didn't call. I couldn't. I just sank onto my couch and put my head in my hands. Something was happening. The dynamic was shifting violently, and for the first time in years, I wasn't smoothing it over. And the thing I didn't know yet, the thing that was coming, was that Sabine would not let the shift happen quietly. She was about to escalate, hard, and it would get physical, messy, public, much sooner than I expected. Sabine didn't wait until Sunday dinner to make her next move. She showed up at my apartment the very next evening. No warning, no text. Just the sound of someone pounding on my door like they were trying to break through it. I was in the middle of making pasta, nearly dropped the pot when the first slam landed. My heart jumped into my throat. Mira, open the door! Her voice was raw, uncontrolled. I'd never heard it like that, shaking, almost unhinged. I cracked the door open an inch, just enough to see her face. Her eyes were swollen from crying, mascara streaking like war paint. Her blouse was wrinkled, hair wild, like she'd driven with the windows down at full speed. She shoved the door the rest of the way open without asking. I can't believe you, she spat, pushing past me into my own apartment like she owned the place. Sabine, what the hell are you doing here? I followed her into the living room, adrenaline already buzzing under my skin. She whirled around, eyes blazing. You're going to destroy my life over one payment? One? I never said no. I said I'm not your bank. Oh, please, she snapped, waving her hand like she was swatting away a fly. You don't know the first thing about financial pressure. You don't have responsibilities. You don't have anything to lose. I actually laughed, harsh and disbelieving. Sabine, I've been paying your mortgage for 2 years. Her face twisted. Stop saying that like it makes you some kind of hero. You're doing the bare minimum for your family. Bare minimum? My voice cracked because I felt something ripping open inside. I've kept you afloat? That house, your perfect little renovations, your stupid deck, those things exist because of me. That's when she snapped fully. No, no! She grabbed one of the picture frames from my bookshelf, one with me and my college roommate smiling at the beach, and hurled it at the wall. Glass exploded across the hardwood. I froze. My breath caught. My ears rang. Sabine stared at the shattered frame like she didn't recognize her own hands. Then she turned to me, chest heaving. You made me do that. You push and push and push. I push? I stepped backward, trembling. Sabine, you invade my home, break my things, scream at me, and I'm the one pushing? I'm drowning, she screamed, clutching her head. And you, of all people, are acting like I'm some burden on you. You are, I whispered. It was the truth. The first time I'd said it out loud. She froze. The look on her face was almost feral. Then she stormed toward my kitchen counter, grabbed my planner, the one where I kept all my rent schedules, property maintenance notes, everything. And before I could move, she flipped it open and ripped out a handful of pages. What the hell are you doing? I lunged forward, grabbing at the papers. She shoved me hard enough that I stumbled into the side of my table and knocked over a chair. You want to lecture me about my life? You want to tell me I'm a burden? She shouted. Then let's see what you have going on that's so important. She started grabbing more pages, desperate, as if searching for proof that I deserved her contempt. In her frenzy, she didn't realize what she was looking at, but I did. Names of tenants, addresses of properties, payment logs, renovation budgets. My entire financial life, my real one, was spilling onto the floor. I felt cold all over, like my bones were being dunked in ice water. "Sabine," I said slowly, voice trembling, "put the planner down." She froze mid-rip. Her eyes flicked over the columns of numbers, the property addresses, the income totals. I watched the exact moment her brain made the connection. "You..." Her voice cracked. "Mira, what is this?" I swallowed hard. "My properties." Her mouth fell open. She stared at me like I had transformed into a stranger. "You own these? All of these?" "I do." "And you've been helping me because... why? Pity?" "No, because you're my sister," I said, "and I thought you'd do the same for me." The room went dead silent. But under the silence, something else was brewing, something ugly, something unstable. Sabine didn't collapse into remorse. She didn't apologize. She didn't even breathe normally. Instead, I watched her expression twist into something darker, more dangerous. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered, voice trembling in a way I didn't like. "Why did you let me look like an idiot? Why did you let our parents think you were a failure while I..." She choked on her own words. I didn't know it yet, but this was the moment everything was about to flip. Not just emotionally, publicly, physically, explosively. By Sunday, she'd dragged the entire family into the mess. And she wouldn't do it calmly. Sabine didn't leave quietly. After she saw the pages from my planner and realized what they meant, she stood in the middle of my apartment like she'd been hit by a truck. But instead of softening, apologizing, anything human, she turned brittle, sharp, almost vibrating with humiliation. "You made a fool of me," she whispered. "I didn't..." "You did," she snapped. Her hands shook violently as she pointed at the papers scattered across the floor. "You let me sit there talking about equity and responsibility and adult life while you were hiding all this like some twisted secret." "I didn't hide it to hurt you," I said, keeping my voice low, even though my pulse was pounding hard enough to blur my vision. "I hid it because I didn't want to deal with all of this." She blinked rapidly. Her eyes glistened, not with sadness, with rage. "You let them think you were the failure," she said, "and you let me play the villain. Do you know how that makes me look?" "Sabine, you acted like the villain," I snapped before I could stop myself. "Wrong move!" She lunged toward me. Not to hit me. No, Sabine's violence was never that straightforward. She went for my phone, grabbed it off the counter so fast it made a scraping sound. "Hey, give that back!" "No." She held it above her head like a prize. "If you're going to humiliate me, if you're going to flip my whole life upside down, then our parents are going to hear the full truth right now." My stomach dropped. "Sabine, don't." "Oh, now you want to keep secrets?" She barked out a laugh. "Not anymore, Mira. You don't get to hide. You don't get to keep anything hidden." Before I could stop her, she darted to the doorway, yanked the door open, and ran down the hallway. "Sabine, stop!" I bolted after her, grabbed her wrist right as she reached the stairwell. She jerked violently, twisting away. The phone slipped from her grip and clattered down a step. She let out this strangled, frustrated scream, raw and high, and kicked the wall so hard a framed emergency exit sign clattered sideways. "You've ruined everything!" she yelled, face red, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Now they'll look at me like I'm the failure." "They won't," I said, but it sounded weak even to me. Her chest rose and fell in panicked bursts. "Yes, they will. You wanted this. You wanted to make me look pathetic." "That's not true!" She cut me off with a wild, desperate laugh. "God, you're such a liar. You let me drown just so you could feel superior." I felt a sudden calm wash through me, icy, steady, terrifyingly clear. Because for the first time I realized Sabine wasn't just reacting. She was rewriting the story in real time to protect her ego, and she was willing to burn me alive to do it. She turned, snatched my phone off the stair, and sprinted down to the parking lot. I chased her out into the blue dusk light, shouting her name, but she was already fumbling her keys, ripping her car door open. "Sabine, stop!" She got in anyway, slamming the door, locking it. I pounded on the window. "Give me my phone." She rolled it down an inch, just enough to say, "Family meeting, Sunday. They're going to hear everything." Then she drove off. My hands were still shaking as I watched her taillights disappear, but somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear and humiliation and exhaustion, something else sparked. A dark, quiet resolve. If she wanted to drag me into a public spectacle, fine. But she had no idea what she'd just awakened, because I had 15 properties. I had leverage. I had receipts. And I had been quiet my entire life. Too quiet. Sunday dinner wasn't going to go the way she imagined. Not even close. My revenge wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be precise, calculated, sweet. And it would hit her exactly where she lived, literally, and she wouldn't see it coming. I spent the days leading up to Sunday in a fog of anger and calculation. Sabine had my phone for almost 3 hours before she finally left it on my doorstep in a plastic grocery bag like it was contaminated evidence. Screen cracked, notifications blown up with text from her. Be ready Sunday. You brought this on yourself. Don't twist things this time. We're talking as a family. She wanted a public spectacle. She wanted control. She wanted to corner me in the one place she still felt superior. She had no idea I'd already started building a trap of my own. The thing about owning 15 rental properties is you learn patterns, people's habits, people's blind spots. Sabine was predictable to a fault. She cared about image above everything, status, presentation, and power. She wasn't afraid of losing the truth. She was afraid of losing the story. So I planned something that would rip the story out of her hands the second she tried to perform in front of our parents. And I didn't have to lie. I just had to time the truth. By Sunday, I had printouts, actual paper receipts of every transfer I had made to her mortgage account. I had copies of the text where she demanded early payments. I had emails from her contractor, confirming my card was on file for her deck extension. But that wasn't the revenge. Not the real one. The real revenge came the night before. I drove to Sabine's precious sage greenhouse under cover of darkness, parking a block away. My heart pounded, but not out of guilt, out of this strange, electric clarity. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I wasn't breaking in. I was simply making sure the stage was set. Her house looked pristine, picture perfect. The porch swing she bragged about swayed slightly in the wind. The exterior lights cast this warm glow that made everything look magazine-worthy. She left a stack of contractor receipts on her porch in a plastic sleeve. You could see the corner sticking out from under a decorative lantern. Probably forgot to bring them inside after showing a neighbor. She was careless when emotional. I walked up the steps, picked up the sleeve, and slid inside 3 documents of my own. The original contractor invoices bearing my payment info. When she tried to shame me in front of our parents, the evidence of my involvement in her beloved renovations would already be sitting inside her own home. Undeniable and unspinnable. That was the symbolic revenge. But the sweet revenge? That came next. I didn't touch her house. I didn't vandalize anything. I didn't stoop to her level. Instead, I placed something else on her porch swing. A bright yellow notice of lease violation. Envelope. Empty. Completely fake. Something I printed at home. But Sabine didn't know that. She would see it before she left for the family meeting. She would panic. She would spiral. She would walk into that meeting already cracked open before I said a single word. I didn't need to destroy her life. I just needed to let her own fear do the heavy lifting. Sunday arrived with the weight of a storm. When I walked into my parents' house, Sabine was already there, pacing, frantic, the yellow envelope clutched in her hand like it was radioactive. Her eyes shot up when she saw me, wild and scared. "What is this?" she hissed, shoving it at my chest. "Are you behind this?" I shrugged, calm in a way that scared even me. "Looks like something you should open." She looked like she wanted to hit me, or cry, or both. My parents were confused, already on edge. "Mira, Sabine said you two had a fight," my mom said gently. "Maybe we should all sit—" Sabine cut her off, slamming the envelope on the dining table. "No! We're doing this now. Mira has been lying to all of us. She's been hiding things, manipulating things." She pointed at me with a shaking finger. "She's been making me look like an idiot." My dad frowned. "Sabine, calm down." "I will not calm down!" she screamed, voice cracking. She was unraveling beautifully. "Tell them!" she demanded, rounding on me. "Tell them the truth! Tell them what you've been hiding!" I took a seat, slowly, deliberately, heart steady. "Which truth?" I asked. Sabine froze, thrown off kilter. So I continued. "That I've been paying your mortgage for the last 2 years?" My mother gasped. That I paid for your deck? My dad blinked hard like he was rebooting. That you screamed at me, broke my picture frame, and tore up my planner in my own apartment. Sabine's knees buckled. Physically. She had to grab the back of a chair to stay upright. No, no, she's twisting things again. She's trying to make me look like someone who lives off me financially while lecturing me about responsibility, I said softly. The room fell silent except for Sabine's ragged breathing, and then I delivered the final blow. I own 15 properties. I am more financially stable than you have ever been, and the only reason you still have that house, your house, is because I quietly kept you afloat while you called me a failure. My mother covered her mouth. My father leaned back slowly, like someone just punched him in the chest. Sabine's eyes filled with tears. Not sad ones, panicked ones. How could you humiliate me like this? She whispered. I leaned forward. You did that yourself. She sobbed, loud, broken, then grabbed the fake notice off the table and stormed out of the room so fast the chair behind her toppled. My parents stared after her, then at me, and something in the room shifted forever. Sabine didn't leave the house. At least, not in the way any normal person would. The moment she fled the dining room, we heard the back door slam so hard the frame rattled. My mom jumped up, panicked. Oh, God, she's upset, and maybe I should... Sit, my dad said firmly. He looked old, older than I'd ever seen him. Let her have some air. But Sabine wasn't outside for air. She was outside to combust. Through the kitchen window, we saw her pacing across the lawn, hair flying, clutching the fake lease violation envelope like it was a death sentence. She kept glancing back at the house, muttering to herself, shaking her head violently. My mother was wringing her hands. Mira, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us about the properties, about the money? Because you never would have believed me. Because you only see what Sabine shines light on. Because I got tired of being the disappointment no matter what. But I didn't say any of that. I didn't want to make a big thing out of it, I said quietly. I just handled what needed to be handled. My dad nodded slowly, and Sabine took advantage. My mom flinched like he'd stabbed her. She's stressed, Peter. She's been under so much pressure. And she put it all on Mira, he said, voice low and sharp. That's not stress, that's selfish. Before anything else could be said, the back door slammed again, so violently the wall shook, because Sabine had come back inside. She was beyond crying now. She was in full meltdown. Her face was red and blotchy, eyeliner smeared, hair sticking to her cheeks. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Her hands were shaking so badly the fake notice trembled in her grip. You ruined me! She screamed the second she saw me. My mom rushed towards her, but Sabine jerked away violently, practically throwing her off. You made me look like a leech, a charity case. You humiliated me in front of Mom and Dad. You humiliated yourself, I said quietly. She slammed her fist into the wall, full force. A framed family photo crashed to the floor, splintering. My mom cried out, Sabine, stop! Stop it! But Sabine wasn't listening. She was unraveling in real time. You lied, she shrieked. You hid your stupid little properties. You hid everything. You wanted to embarrass me. You wanted to make me look pathetic. I stayed seated, calm, too calm. You ripped open my planner, I said. You stormed into my home. You threw my picture frame at the wall. You took my phone. You drove to my parents before I could speak. And now you want to blame me for what you did? Sabine froze, and then she laughed. A high, hysterical, cracked lip laugh. You think this is over? She asked, voice jagged. You think you can just walk in here and destroy my life? I didn't destroy your life, I said. I told the truth. Shut up! She screamed, grabbing a nearby ceramic serving dish off the counter and hurling it across the room. It smashed into pieces against the fridge. My mother shrieked. My father jumped to his feet. But I just sat there, because the more she broke, the clearer everything became. For years I kept myself small to avoid exactly this. This hurricane, this emotional carnage, this weaponized fragility. And now she was showing everyone who she really was. Sabine lifted her trembling hand and pointed it at me like she was casting a curse. I'm done protecting you, Mira, she whispered. I'm done being the bigger person. I'm going to all of your tenants. I'm going to your banks. I'm going to your job. I don't have a job, I said. She blinked, confused. I don't work for a consulting firm, I continued. I never have. She blinked again, slower. I'm full-time self-employed. My properties are my job. Something behind her eyes cracked open like the breaking of a frozen lake. You, Sabine breathed, you lied to us about that too? Yes. For a moment she looked like she might faint. Her knees buckled and she dropped into a chair like the bones had drained out of her. You lied about everything, she said in a small, trembling voice. No, I said. You assumed everything. The distinction hit her harder than anything else I had said. My father took a slow breath. Sabine, I think you need help. She stared at him like he'd spoken in another language. Help? She whispered. From who? And then her gaze slid back to me. Not angry, not furious, something worse, desperate, clinging. I just need you, she said softly. Mira, please, please don't make me lose everything. I'm nothing without that house. And for the first time in my life, she said something true. I exhaled. Sabine, you already lost control. You did that yourself. Her face crumpled and she let out a guttural sob. Ugly, raw, sudden. She reached for me across the table, but my dad stepped between us. Enough, he said. You need to step back. Now. Sabine froze, and then bolted out of the room like a panicked animal. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. We all sat there in stunned silence. My mother sobbed softly. My father stared at the broken dish on the floor, and I just breathed. For the first time in years, I felt something like oxygen rushing into a room that had been sealed shut, but it wasn't over. Sabine's desperation wasn't going to fade. It was going to transform, and the final fallout, the final reveal, would hit harder than all the rest. After Sabine ran out of the house, the silence that settled over us didn't feel peaceful. It felt stunned, flattened, like the air inside the dining room had been knocked out of its chest and hadn't come back yet. My mother was sitting at the table, shaking so badly her glass of water rattled. My father was pacing with tight, controlled steps. Like if he moved too fast, he'd break something too. She's not well, my mom whispered. I've never seen her like that. I had. Not to that degree, but I'd seen the cracking edges of that instability for years, always directed at me, always dismissed as Sabine being stressed. Now they had seen the full version. She needs support, my mother said. She needs boundaries, my father countered. And for the first time, he looked at me when he said it, which felt like the ground shifting under us. But we didn't have time to keep talking about it, because 20 minutes later, the front door opened again, softly this time. Sabine walked in as if she'd been wrung out and left to dry in the cold. Her eyes were red, her makeup washed off her cheeks in streaks. She wasn't screaming now. She wasn't breaking things. She looked hollow. Mira, she said quietly. I tensed, bracing for another eruption, but she didn't erupt. She collapsed, literally onto the floor, knees hitting the wooden boards with a thud that made my mom gasp. She pressed her palms into her face and sobbed. Deep, whole-body sobs that shook her shoulders. I don't know who I am, she said into her hands. I don't know how I got here. My parents rushed to her, but I stayed still. I wasn't cold. I wasn't cruel. I just recognized that she needed to fall apart without me cushioning her. Sabine! My mom cried, pulling her into her arms. Honey, please, please, breathe. My father crouched beside them. We're not angry. We're not judging. But we can't fix this unless you're honest about what's been going on. That sentence, honest, landed on her like a new weight. She took a shaky breath and looked at me. I didn't mean to make you small, she said. I just needed to feel like I was big, like I had something. For a moment I saw the sister who used to braid my hair before school, the one who let me crawl into her bed during thunderstorms. Something tight in my chest loosened, but not all the way, not enough to erase everything. She wiped her cheeks. When I lost my job, I thought I was done. I thought I had failed. And when you helped me, I knew how bad that made me look. You built a persona, I finished for her, and you protected it at my expense. She nodded miserably. My mom's voice broke as she said, Why didn't you tell us about the mortgage? We could have helped. No, Sabine whispered, turning her face into her hands. "You would have told me to sell the house, and I couldn't." Her voice cracked. "I couldn't lose it. It was the only thing I had left that made me feel worth something." And just like that, the missing piece fell into place. Sabine didn't love her house because it was a house. She loved it because it was proof. Proof she had value, or proof she had succeeded. Proof she wasn't failing at adulthood. And I, quiet, supportive, invisible me, had been the one secretly propping up that proof. She looked at me again. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for what I did in your apartment. I was scared and angry, and I broke things. I hurt you. I shouldn't have." I believe she meant it, but apologies don't erase patterns. They acknowledge them. "I'm glad you're saying that," I said gently, "but things have to change. I'm not funding your mortgage anymore, not a cent." She nodded, slow, devastated, but accepting. "I know. I'll figure something out." My father put a hand on her shoulder. "We'll help you, but you have to live within your means, Sabine. No more renovations, no more pretending." She cried harder at that, but she didn't fight it. My mom looked at me, eyes full of something tender, regretful. "And you, Mira, we owe you an apology, too. We didn't see you. We didn't ask. We just assumed." That part hurt more than Sabine's screaming or the broken picture frame, but I nodded. "I know." Sabine stood shakily, brushing her hair from her face. "Can I see you sometime this week? Just us? I won't yell. I won't touch your things. I just want to talk. Start over." I didn't give her an immediate yes. "Let's, take a little space," I said. "Then we'll figure it out." She accepted that, wiped her eyes again, and left with my parents hovering behind her like nervous guard dogs. When the door finally closed and I was alone in the dining room, I exhaled a deep, shaking breath I'd been holding for years. My revenge hadn't been loud. It hadn't been cruel. It had been truth. Truth delivered at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right way, with exactly the right pressure. And it forced Sabine to face the one person she'd been hiding from all along, herself. Later that night, my phone lit up with a message from her. "Thank you for telling the truth. It hurt, but I needed it. I'm going to get help." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I set my phone down, made myself some tea, and sat in the soft silence of my own apartment, the one I chose, the one I earned, the one nobody could shame me for. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the family failure. I felt like someone who had finally stepped into her own life. And Sabine, well, she finally stepped out of her fantasy. And maybe, just maybe, that was the sweetest justice of all.